Welcome to another episode of The Growth Game with Paul DeLuca. I'm the CEO of Meritus Capital, your go-to payroll funding specialist. We're honored to have Mr. Steve Hall here with us today, another expert in the recruiting and staffing business. And Steve's going to give us some of his excellent insights into growth and the things that our audience can really pick from. So we appreciate it very much, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be with you, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, sometimes I love starting these podcasts where we don't even know each other. So I think we're going to take just 2 or 3 minutes and do a basic intro, and then we'll go into kind of a nice free-flowing conversation. But Steve, so I'm Paul DeLuca. I've been in the financing of the staffing businesses since the late 90s. I am
Man, you're
definitely
old.
I know. Thank you for that. That was on cue. I didn't even have to plan it. You know what? Boy, I tell you what. I'm up here, by the way. I didn't want to stop the recording this week, but I'm up here in the mountains with a little ski trip with my two daughters and my two granddaughters. So I'm trying to hold my age well.
Well, I hope you don't fall and break anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that I don't. I'm gonna be careful. But you know what? Yeah. So I've been doing this a long time. I started out in the staffing business. I'm not a banker. I started out in a specialty staffing business in the 90s. I enjoyed entrepreneurship so much. I enjoyed seeing other people create wealth and grow their businesses. And so I started financing staffing companies in the late 90s. I've financed about 800 or so. I really enjoy my business. I get up every day, love talking to my clients and new prospects and helping them find, nuggets of knowledge to be able to continue to grow their business. And certainly I love providing the capital that helps them do it. So Steve, that's my background, but love to hear a little bit about your background, how you got into the staffing business, and we can talk a little bit about your growth.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to tell you I just got into it last year, but unfortunately that would not be true. I may be as old as you or older. I started in this business with this firm 34 years ago as a senior in college in 1989.
Wow. How nice.
So I hit the 57 mark this last year, and at this point, I plan to ride out my career, another
That's
8
great.
to 10 years.
That's amazing. Well done. Well done. That's incredible. That kind of tenure at a firm just obviously shows the commitment to both sides, both how the firm looks at expertise and leadership and growth, and to see those kinds of relationships long term is just beautiful. So, well, that's great.
Right.
Excellent to see you've been at it for so long. Well, great. So talk to me a little bit about your extraordinary growth. I mean, from what our perspective is, it looks like since you've been there, is this number right? You've seen something like 2,000% growth at Find Great People, and that's your primary brand, right? Find Great People?
Yep, that's right. So the story on that is actually pretty simple. We were founded by one gentleman in 1982, so we're in our 41st year. He came from the apparel textile manufacturing space. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. That was the hub of all that activity many years ago. And he was a vice president of industrial relations, and he just was frustrated. He did not get good success from the headhunters he was using. He couldn't find talent that he needed, which sounds so familiar to today. And so he just said, how hard can this be? And he just said, I think I can build a better mousetrap. And so he was an engineer by education and training. And he just told his wife, I'm going to start my own little business. And so it was Walter Phillips Associates, he and his wife. And that was how the business got started. And so then I joined as a college kid. So there were 7 in the firm, and they didn't throw me into apparel textiles. They threw me into information technology, which you may recall back in those eras, we called it data processing.
Oh, I remember.
Not a very flattering term.
It wasn't.
And so I didn't know at the time. As you look back now, I realized I was launching the IT recruitment division, right?
Got it.
But that I don't want to give any more credit to myself at that point. But what changed was, and you'll know this date, of course, 9/11. The towers go down. The economy's in free fall. The Bush-Gore presidential hanging Chad vote debacle. And then it's February of 2002, and our founder, Mr. Phillips, came to me and he said, I'm 70 and I can't continue this. So it's time for you to buy the firm, to which I panicked and said, no, I'm not going to do it. And he went out on the market and quietly looked for a suitor, and he had 8 offers in 3 months, which stunned me. He chose the current ownership And I only learned 2 years ago, he's 90 now. He told me quietly, he said, the reason I chose the current leaders who bought the company was not because they made the best offer. He said, I chose them because of the character of who they were.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that is at the foundation as to how our firm, since that period, since 2002, since that we've seen that kind of growth, it really has to do with leadership, modeling, great culture, and it just continued to work as we expanded.
I love that. And, something that I've seen as a recurring theme in my career when I look at successful businesses, and I have an excellent view of that, right? Because I look at so many financial applications, I see so many companies that grow and thrive, and depth of character can never be underestimated because depth of character is what continues to keep a business momentum going long term with good relationships internally and externally. And so that's excellent. That's great that you found yourself in that role right out of college. That's remarkable. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of the key strategies that have been instrumental in achieving such a remarkable growth over the years?
So, Paul, I would be lying to you if I told you it was all strategically planned. The quick
Sometimes it
story,
pays to be lucky, and
yeah.
that's okay too.
Well, and I'll just say we believe in some divine intervention along the way, obviously. So here's the real story. The only thing that our firm organically set out to do was to be a headhunting firm. That was it. So executive search, professional level as well, but that was the only thing that we created from scratch back in 1982. However, a client called in 2004, a major grocery chain that was headquartered here, and they were owned by a Dutch company, and that company bought another grocery chain in Birmingham, Alabama called Bruno's. And so they were going to merge these two entities together, and all the back office accounting was going to come to our city here in Greenville. And so they called and said, we need some short term or at least 1 to 2 year contract employees in the accounting space. Would you be interested? Our CEO, who came from Robert Half, one of the owners, said absolutely, because up until that point, we were not a blended firm.
Right.
And so that was the first major shift that we did not plan. And so 2004,
And
you
that
now
shift,
have,
just for clarity, make sure I understand. And that shift was really moving away from pure executive search only to actually having a contract division.
yes, in all
Got it.
fairness and respect to Mr. Phillips, he would never agree to a blended model. Be that as it may, John, our CEO, said, no, yeah, we'll definitely pursue that. And so he jumped on that, and that grew another revenue stream for us, which, as you know yourself, the importance of recurring revenue. The search model was one fee at a time, which was nice, except for the fact that you had no predictability. Initial staffing business started with accounting and finance, and then it really quickly, like within 2 months, it grew to include all of what we used to call office clerical administrative support, and it also included information technology contracting. Up to that point, it was strictly what we used to call the perm business, as you might know.
Right. Steve,
So that
I appreciate that you highlighted that too in that transition because that concept of being able to add contract onto a good permanent placement business is a difficult thing for a lot of executive recruiters to make a decision to do. They like to say that they want it pure play, but I also have seen it as the number one method to create that recurring revenue and enterprise value and wealth. So super interesting to see that you fell into that and then of course did do it. Would you say that that transition when you were kind of forced into it really then is key to really building the size of the business and the growth of the business and then therefore the value of the business?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, when the two gentlemen bought us, we had a total of 12 in the company, 3 or 4 support staff, and then the rest were headhunters, of which I was one. But when you added the staffing, obviously, as you know, you have to compound that because you have outside sales, inside recruiting, kind of like a 2-to-1 model maybe. And so our team quickly grew to double, 25 or so heads. The revenue actually greatly increased because of the staffing side, because of
Right.
that recurring model. You could put more people out, more placements, and then it's just a matter of managing the margins and making sure that you're not out of the market, but that you're actually getting a decent return. The burden costs, as you know, can be kind of high. That was the first pivot point for us. And then that was 04, 05. Real quick, we got asked by another client, MaxFly Golf. Don't know if you play golf, but
Yeah.
the
Yep.
MaxFly Golf brand, the golf ball plant was headquartered here in South Carolina, and they were being bought by TaylorMade, which is another big name. The COO called and said, I got to lay 300 people off and close the plant. FGP, would you do the outplacement? To which I said, we don't do outplacement, but our CEO, the entrepreneur, said, when do you need the RFP? We won the RFP. And so that launched us yet into another business. So we now had two divisions that found talent, one division that let talent go. Seemed odd. And then in 07, we bought an HR consulting business that approached us, and it just made sense. It's like, yeah, so we now have finding talent, we now have developing and retaining talent, and we also have transitioning talent. So if you want to say these were strategies, that's why I say no, we did not plan these. They came to us, and thankfully our leadership team was smart enough to say, that makes sense. Now, how do we integrate that?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between strategic planning and executing on a vision to open a new, new sector of the business or a new product. But there's also a great concept here, and that is an opportunity comes up and you actually capitalize on it, right? Like, there's all these opportunities in life that can be presented, and if we're not open to being able to, think it through and adapt, right, we can miss opportunities. So that's excellent that you folks really took the time to look at the opportunity and find a way to handle it and execute on it. That's great. I'm curious, what kind of innovation have you found to be critical in your recruiting practices? What kind of technology advancements have you made that's really impacting the company?
Yeah. So again, given that the two of us are veterans in terms of our stations in life in this business, I don't know if you can relate to this, but when I started in this business, I had two hardbound Harris published directories, and that was all the resources that I had, and I had a phone, and I had a dumb terminal. I could not enter data. I could only look at data. Okay.
Right.
And then eventually, we get to about the 2003 timeframe. This is a little embarrassing. Can't believe I'm going to say this nationally, but in 2003, we didn't even have an email for the company. We were lagging behind, but we were such a small boutique firm, it worked for us.
Right.
Until it didn't. And it didn't because clients were saying pretty quickly, hey, what's your email address? What's your website address? We went through a rebranding at that particular point as well. We were known as Phillips International after the namesake of the founder, to find great people. That's a story in and of itself. Probably the best marketing money that we could have ever spent, because the name tells what we do. And so as a result of that, the technology had to change at that point. I laugh now, but the CEO and I, as we were still a small company, we did our first CRM selection. We thought it was what we could afford, and it turned out to be awful, right?
Yeah, they usually are when they're first go around.
It's all the money we had. We thought we were being smart. A few years later, you realize, oh my goodness, the limitations. But I'll just say, cut to the chase. Today, we're a major investor in the CRM from Bullhorn. So we went mainstream. Yeah. We had to invest a lot of money to make that happen. And it just seems like year after year after year since we've done that, we've had to figure out what are other ways that we could advance the technological aspect of either Bullhorn or something bolt on. And then, the story of LinkedIn and Zoom info. And I mean, you can just spend your way into oblivion if you're not careful. And so I think it's helpful that you be patient enough to not purchase the newest and latest thing that comes out always. Let other people make it work. And then in time, you'll figure out, hey, that could really help us.
Yeah, I love that. I advise my clients all the time, don't be on the bleeding edge.
Right.
Let somebody else be on the bleeding edge, and you can be right behind them and still lead and lead with adaptation and technology and find an impact in your business. So that sounds like what you've done really well. So tell me a bit of what's your core practice in the business? What is your main activity? How do you function in your company, and what capacity do you see impacting the growth of the business even now and into the future for the next 5 to 10 years?
So if I tell you what I'm doing, then everybody will know what I'm doing. There's a great value and mystery in the fact that Uncle Steve, nobody really knows what he does every day, and I'm great for that. So real quickly on my role, the first 15 years I was a headhunter, right? I had to go get my own business. I had to fill my own orders. So I ran a full desk. And then in 2004, I got promoted to the first layer of middle management. So the first time we had a director level, and I ran the only part of the business we had, executive search. So I was the director of executive search. And then I did that for 5 years. And in 2009, you may recall there was a global recession going on in 2009. And the search business was really struggling, the permanent hire business, direct hire business. The short story is that John, our CEO, came to me on a Friday at 5 o'clock, which generally is not the time you want to see your CEO at the end of a week because it could be bad news. And he came and he just said, I need you to fill another role in the company. And I said, hey, we meet every week. What role are you talking about? And he said, I want you to be the VP of business development, to which I said, I don't even know what that means. And he's famous for the initials FIO, figure it out. And so I left 5 o'clock Friday, managing a division, to Monday. Nobody reported to me. I had no P&L. I was lost a little bit, right? But for the last 14 years, I can say safely, Paul, I'm in the best seat in the house. It's perfect for me. It capitalizes on my 30-something years of experience, my network of who I know. And so most of my time is spent out in front with external prospects and existing clients, and also mentoring members of our team when I get that opportunity. And then I get pulled in for outplacement services. My sister runs the HR consulting side of our business. And so we've worked together for 31 years. And so I get pulled in a lot of different places and in ways. And I'm kind of probably known by our CEO. He refers to me as a utility player. And so I go and fill a hole when I need to. As far as the future is concerned, we've continued to grow so nicely, but I really probably am best suited in the outward facing role of the company rather than in the process driven administrative. You might as well shoot me if I have to go back to that.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. Once you start moving the ball forward by being a relationship person, whether that's retaining existing clients or finding new clients, it's a great place to be. It sounds like you're impacting the business in a positive way. I appreciate you also that you're mentoring. You're, providing leadership and mentoring in an organization is absolutely key, and it has to come from more than just the CEO, or the business can never grow. So I'm curious, what have you found to be, maybe the top 2 or 3 skills needed that you've been able to hone to be a good mentor in your company?
Well, first of all, I don't think I deserve credit. I'm given credit sometimes, and I'm grateful for the thank yous. But you really need to learn how to humble yourself and recognize that you were once in the seat that these others are. About 70% of our firm is female out of nearly 100 associates. Close to that same amount are millennial and Gen Z. They're having families for the first time. Some of them are brand new to the business. I'm Uncle Steve, and that's perfectly fine with me. I need to be humble in front of my colleagues. At the same time, one of the benefits of being so old in the business and maybe stationed in life, I've been fortunate to see a lot of things that went great, but a lot of things that either I did or we did that did not go well. And so they're very kind to allow me to say, can I make a suggestion? Can I offer a thought? So that's helpful. There's just value in having been in the business for so long. I hate to tell you this, but while we have all this technology and it feels new, at the end of the day, nothing is really new. We still have 2 clients. We have those that will pay our fee on the client side, company side, and we have those that we need to place on the candidate side. And without those 2, we don't have a business. We still need to learn how to be better at empathy and sympathy when we're dealing with people's lives. Our motto is find great people to build great companies. Well, that means we're advancing people's careers at the same time we're expanding growth in companies. Well, that doesn't happen just because we download a bunch of resumes, send them off, and somebody gets hired. Before I got on with you, I've been on a 40-minute virtual call with a gentleman out of Tennessee, and he owns an asset management company, basically a PE-backed company. We're talking about how would you find people for me? They have a set of virtues, values in their company, very specific, and he's wanting to know how can you, Steve, and your team, FGP, not just find capable people, but find people that resonate with our virtues and values. Well, that's very different than just simply going to careerbuilder.com or monster.com, the old days, right? And just downloading resumes. We've got to be really good at the vetting. And so we need to continue to work on how to help our teammates do better at that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, all the technology in the world doesn't take away the formula for what we're doing. And I really appreciate, like you said, you have to have that empathy and realize the things that we're doing impact people's lives long term. So I appreciate that. And I think that's really important to never lose the human element. The human element is the key. We are in the people business. And so all these other things can make us more productive, maybe, if we use them right. But we can't lose that human element. You can't just completely remove this, to a point of where this is just plug and play, because there's all those other things, those values that come in. There's a unique decisioning around whether or not an employee is going to stay with the company and whether or not you want to be able to continue to have an employee work for that company, because they all have a persona and that persona has to work. So I appreciate that. It's interesting, Steve, we speak to, and I finance many people who have been in your position where you worked for another executive or an owner, and companies decide, you know what, it's time for me to do it myself. Or, excuse me, individuals decide it's time for me to do it myself. Now, you've made that decision not to. You've stuck with this business for a long time, and that's fine. That's a great a decision for you. But I'd appreciate you to maybe help us as entrepreneurs are looking at this, or potentially ones that are thinking, do I go it alone or do I stick with what I have? What are some of the things that you think would be valuable decision points to review whether or not it makes sense to go it alone or to stick it out and continue to ride like you have for so many years with an excellent organization, but working for another owner?
Okay, so Paul, let me be really transparent with you and the rest of the world that might be watching this. While I've been at the same company since I was 22 and now 57, I have interviewed 5 times. This is not a secret with our CEO. He knows this story. Over the years, I've had 5 different organizations in our general industry tap me on the shoulder and say, would you talk with us? Well, I felt like it would be hypocritical if I said no because of what I do. And so I said, okay, I'll talk. I had offers, and every time I got an offer, I examined, is this really better than what I have? And so there are 3 key decision points that I would tell you I have used to tell myself it's not time to go. Number 1, do I like what I do every day? Some people would say, do you love it? Okay, I can be good with that, but I'm a pretty practical guy. Do I really enjoy what I'm doing every single day, the role that I'm in? And the answer is absolutely. And by the way, 34 years, I've been in multiple roles as the company has grown. So you could argue I've left and gone to different companies. I just happen to stay in the same desk all that time. And so I've had experiences where I didn't have to go elsewhere. So number 1, do I like and love what I do? Number 2, can I make a great living where I'm at? And the short answer without details is I've made a wonderful living and I am not complaining. The third, which actually is the most important, do I love the people that I work with? And frankly, if I had a problem with the third, even if the first 2 were good, that would force me to look to go elsewhere. But
excellent insight.
I tell the story. I've always loved the people that I've worked with in my years here, and the ones who didn't work well with me have left. So I get the benefit of that in that those that I maybe didn't see eye to eye with, they moved on and I didn't have to. So that third one is really, really critical, and it actually weaves into the foundation of why our firm has done so well, because the culture of our company is such that people like working here for the most part.
Right. Yeah, that's nice. Those are excellent points. funny. I have one of my top people that's worked for me now. He runs a sales group, and he's worked for me about 17 years now. And we were laughing the other day because he always sends me when the recruiters come knocking, and send him an offer. He always sends it to me. But it's really about having that other facet to something, because you can always be outpriced. It's not just money. It's do I really enjoy what I'm doing every day? Do I enjoy working with the people I'm working with? And am I sufficiently satisfied with my existing role and the ambition that I have? I think that's really important, because there's nothing wrong with achieving a person's unique ambition level and being a
Right.
happy person. And that's why I tell people all the time, not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. And frankly, I think we do a bit of disservice in this country by highlighting the billionaire club and putting that out there as the ideal, when really the ideal is somewhere way, way downstream from there, because it
Yes.
it involves having a great family life, having time to be able to do the things you love. And there's nothing wrong with working hard, but certainly being able to achieve each person's unique ambition level equates to happier people. And there's nothing I would want more than investing in a company that's very satisfied with their current ambition, or sees where they're going, but is a happy person, shows up every day and treats their employees and their clients really well. I have clients that really haven't hardly grown in 15 years, but they're great clients and they love what they do, and that's fine. I have other clients that are growing astronomically and continuing to acquire businesses, and that's great. I'll fuel either one of those individual, unique levels of ambition. So I appreciate what you've said there. Well, it's been great to kind of be together and get the insights of how you have impacted the business you've been involved with. It's great to see that there's so many different facets that are involved in creating a company culture and living by it and mentoring other people downstream. And I see that you're obviously doing that, and you're part of a business that's really thrived and been successful. And I know that our listeners enjoy seeing all different aspects of what it takes to see a successful staffing company grow for many, many years and be stable. So that's excellent. Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it. And we wish you the best success in your business. Hopefully we can continue to connect and be able to see each other succeed and thrive going forward, Steve. So thank you very much.
Paul, thank you. It's been great to get to know you and give me a little bit of time today. So thank you.
Absolutely, Steve. Well, thank you. Well, that wraps up the growth game for this week with Paul DeLuca here, CEO of Meritus Capital, your payroll funding go-to partner. Again, we really appreciated Steve's insights today, and we look forward to continued different audiences, impacting different audiences, and having different guests that we can learn different tidbits to what it makes to create a staffing company culture that is growing and is successful. So thank you very much, and we'll until next week. That was the growth game.